Welcome to the Chase Down Podcast, part of the Cavs media family. I'm your host, Justin Rowan. The Chase Down is presented by Fubo, the official streaming partner of the Cavs. Watch over 350 channels of live sports and TV, including FanDuel Sports Network, without cable. There's no cost and no commitment. Try for free at FuboTV.com/Cavs. Since we last recorded, the Cavs got a quality win over the Charlotte Hornets, but were not able to keep their winning streak going against the shorthanded Oklahoma City Thunder. Joining me today to discuss it is my co-host, Carter Rodriguez. Carter, how you doing, buddy?
Oh, I'm doing okay. I think I would define this as a pretty disappointing loss, to be honest. Obviously our first of the James Harden, Keon Ellis, Dennis Schroeder era. But I would say it didn't feel unfamiliar, which I think is a big part of why it's disappointing, because this is a team that while they fought their way back, which is commendable, and tied the game, briefly took the lead in the third quarter. They got run off the court to start the game. They had 10 first quarter turnovers. That's a good game, bad quarter. For total turnovers. Just didn't look ready for the stuff that OKC is famously good at, and that OKC desperately needs in order to compete when they're missing all of their best players.
Yeah. Honestly, I feel like this is a helpful and sobering reminder that with the James Harden trade, what we solved was an availability issue, right? Like with that was kind of the main thing. Obviously, there's some improvement in the margins. We've talked about the experience of what he brings, but this Cavs roster had work to do before the postseason, right? Like coming into this year, our thought wasn't, well, if they can just skip the regular season and be healthy for the playoffs, everything will be fine. There was problem solving that needed to be done. And the issue with this roster wasn't the two-guard lineup. You could say, Darius not being available was certainly part of the issue, but there was real stuff that this team needed to work on. And all of that is still present. Now, the fact that Harden is here means that we can actually get to start working on that rather than trying to be in this limbo of trying to get healthy, trying to, see what this team is going to look like at full strength. But when you talk about coming out slow against a shorthanded team, that is something that we have done routinely. Having these sloppy stretches against a physical perimeter defense where there's a lot of live ball turnovers, that's an issue that's come up before. Not rebounding well, particularly in those one big lineups, that is something that we have seen before. Not consistently involving the big men, that is something that we have seen before, right? Like I think the broadcast even mentioned, Richard Jefferson was saying when they came back in the second and third quarter, hey, the bigs are being very heavily involved here. And I think you saw in that first quarter, there was maybe an effort to feed the bigs, but those passes weren't completed. A lot of kind of those live ball turnovers were with very poor spacing, trying to force feed the bigs, and they weren't able to successfully generate offense. They speed up the tempo. They make some changes to the lineup. All of a sudden, those possessions are happening. Then you get to the fourth quarter. Mobley and Allen don't really get a ton of touches to start the majority of the fourth quarter until the last 4 minutes. The bulk of their shot attempts in the fourth quarter came in the last 4 minutes when the Cavs made that last push. So these are all issues that we have seen before. Now we can, kind of shift our mentality from, hey, these trades fixed everything, to these trades have put us in a position to start addressing the stuff that needed to be addressed.
Yeah, and it all reared its head in this game. Honestly, pretty. Again, it's just disappointing. The Jared Allen insane run of play kind of comes to a halt. He only gets 6 shot attempts in this game.
Yeah.
So they weren't able to consistently find him. Donovan Mitchell's he had a better game than he's had against OKC, which it's a little bit of damning with faint praise. He ends up with 20 points on 19 shots, goes 0 for 6 from 3. By the way, that's one of the craziest parts about this about this Donovan stretch against the Thunder is like he can't shoot against them. It's not the finishing. It's not like that he's getting ripped. It's that like even when he's open, they don't go in. Three, like I feel like he's like 0 of his last 23s against the Thunder. At least it feels that way. And Harden shows some flashes. He gets 9 assists, scores 20 on 14, but only 2 free throw attempts for James Harden. Welcome to Cleveland, brother. And I feel like if your point guard has 5 turnovers against OKC, you're already in trouble. And then if you only get 2 free throw attempts out of that same player, like, the possession battle is not in your favor, my friend. Like, no. You're not getting them out of what they do. I think a big part of the Cavs ungunking things was Dort picking up a second foul. It's a big part of this. So the fact that OKC out free throw attempts you by 6, I know there was some late game stuff, some late game fouling that gives them that advantage, but only 19 free throws against OKC just isn't going to get you where you need to be. And then on the other end, yeah, you can say OKC shot the cover off the ball, and they did. But mostly it's guys who are pretty good shooters that were taking those shots. And when you're getting pick sixes, the hoop just starts to look a little wider, Justin. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, it's funny because Donovan actually played better in this game and performed better from an efficiency standpoint than he did in the game that they beat OKC last season, right? Like, in that game, he had 11 points on 3 of 16 shooting, and they found a way to go out and win that game. And that was primarily because they took much better care of the basketball. They shot better than they did, right? Like, you talk about OKC shooting, and I don't even want to dwell on that too much because I think there's a variety of factors there. But the Cavs shot bad as well, right? Like, it was, that shooting variance in both directions. In that win over the Thunder, the Cavs shot well. They took care of the basketball. The bigs were heavily involved, right? Like, it was a lot of kind of the, basically the inverse recipe of what we saw tonight. And OKC, I think you felt it really early on. The spacing was just very poor, right? They're playing a drop defense against both of the guards. Harden, it's almost unfair to lump him in because ultimately 3 of 7 from 3 is a good shooting night, right? Like that's not far off from 50% shooting. But Donovan in particular was not able to capitalize against that drop defense. And it was made even worse because one of the concerns that we brought up on the last podcast, that Dean Wade is, one of the least respected shooters from a off-ball gravity standpoint. From when you look at the tracking data, you felt that a lot. They were not only dropping off of the guards and daring them to shoot in those situations, the paint was further congested because Dean's man was helping off of him. And I think that led them to kind of this mentality of, all right, let's try to get it inside. Let's try to get the bigs going. But that's not where your advantage was, right? Like, you were kind of forcing a game plan rather than reading what the defense was giving to you. And it took them a while to actually settle down and get out of that mentality.
Yeah, like the pocket pass to the rolling big against drop, like, I get it. That's what you do. You kind of you try to get the corner turned. You try to get the big to commit to you and pass it in. Doesn't matter if a third defender is entering. Like, the whole point of drop is not to have to bring 3 into a 2-man action. Yeah. But like, because the Cavs lineup structure and performance and decision making was there, they were putting 3. They had a third guy just flashing in for a steal over and over and over and over again. And it kind of feels to me like they're almost like just trying to still run the strategy that worked in their win last year, which is generally abusing that drop pick and roll coverage. But OKC made changes. Like, they're bringing that third body in. And like, and some of this isn't scheme. And I think it's important to say that some of this is like, make crisp passes. Some of this is catch the ball with 2 hands, like, and really squeeze the orange. So like, it's not just a scheme thing. It's not just a lineup thing. I mean, when you're down 28-5 to start a game, it's everything, brother. But I do think, like, you're right to say, like, you just didn't really see. I didn't see how those offensive possessions that had a chance of going well. Like, this wasn't just a bad variance thing. It was what the Cavs were doing is what OKC was committing a lot of resources to trying to stop, and it was working.
Yeah, it did not feel like oh, geez, that, they got a good look. It didn't go down. It felt like they were having trouble getting a shot off, right? And I think that is, you have to tip your hat to some extent to OKC. They are able to challenge teams in ways that very few teams are. But I felt like that was a big part of the story, right? But I agree with your assessment that execution was a big part of this, right? And that's, oh, go ahead.
I just wanted to say, OKC does a lot of stuff that I think, if you're a fan of the Cavs or of any other team, I think they do a lot of stuff that really jumps out at me that's interesting. Like, one thing that is like just a default in the NBA is if a non-threat has the ball, the NBA status quo says, back off. Let them try something. They're probably going to do a bad job. And I get that. It makes a lot of sense. Like if a non-shooter has the ball, you give them a lot of space. If a non-dribbler has the ball, you don't need to expend a bunch of energy. They're not going to turn the corner on you.
Mm-hmm.
OKC flips that on their head and on its head. And what I see a lot from them is this really like almost random acts of aggression defensively. Like, okay, whoever was bringing the ball up got some pressure, so they threw it to Dean. Dean picks up, and as Dean crosses half court, an OKC defender is blitzing the hell out of him.
Yeah.
To be like, hey, we don't think you want to dribble right now. We bet if we come at you right as you're crossing half court, you're going to pick it up, and we're going to burn 3 seconds of shot clock. Like, they do all that kind of stuff, and you just don't see other teams do it. And, I got to give credit where credit's due. This OKC team was not even close to this Cavs team on talent tonight.
No.
But that's how you make up talent gaps, by like short-circuiting the brain of the opposition. And like those little plays, I think, are a good example of that.
Yeah, and I think it's part of why they have had such a good record without Shea, and even in this stretch without J-Dub as well. They are getting big wins, right? Like they blow out the Lakers, they blow out the Suns. They have been playing good basketball, even though, testing yourself against this version of the team is a humbling thing, right? Like there is a better version of OKC that's out there, and I think that's why they're the favorite to win the championship again this year. That they're still capable of delivering a test, and you're putting yourself so far behind the 8 ball when you lose that points off a turnover battle by 20 points, right? 31-12. That's brutal. And when you're talking about the cohesiveness that OKC has defensively, where they're able to throw a variety of different looks, they're able to, execute that aggression at various points of time, and everybody knows how to cover for that and where they're supposed to be. They're on a string. That is still a stark contrast from where this Cavs team is defensively. And I think you felt that in the fourth quarter down the stretch. There was just miscommunications, right? Like, I did think one of the issues that we saw routinely in this game was very poor screen navigation from the Cavs guards in particular. I thought both Donovan and James were really, really poor in that area. But it wasn't just confined to them, right? There were multiple possessions where Keon Ellis got hung up on a screen or confused what he was going to do. There was just those miscommunications on the defensive end. And, they gave up quality looks regardless of what the defensive system was. When they were in 3-2 zone, there was that possession with about 8 minutes left where they just kind of split the difference. They managed to get a easy drive into the paint and a dump off pass to Chet Holmgren for a dunk. You can't allow that in zone defense. You had I think the possession prior, Chet Holmgren kind of blew by Keon Ellis, just got him on his hip, got by him. Mobley was forced to contest in that situation, which we've talked about a lot when it comes to those single big minutes. So frequently we allow easy dribble drive penetration. The lone big is forced to contest the shot, and that takes them out of position to get the defensive rebound. And because Mobley and Allen are so good at contesting the shots, most of the time it's a miss, but most of the time that means there's an offensive rebound that's up for grabs. Chet gets it back and scores in that situation, right? It was just, and even, there was one possession where Harden actually did a great job navigating the screen, managed to stay on his man, but Keon thinking, hey, James has got caught on this screen all game long. I'm going to help off of my man and help out in this situation. He didn't need to give the help. the extra pass is made to the corner, and then you had Cason Wallace hit that corner three to, I think it put them up 9. Like, just regardless of what the system was, there are still these defensive miscommunications. And I think that is one of the understandable aspects of this, because this is a group that is still learning how to play with one another. You're now reintegrating Evan Mobley into the lineup. And this is probably the closest thing to a good team you've played. You played a lot of losing teams. Charlotte's on a heater, but they were missing guys. Denver was in the midst of losing 4 out of 5.
Yeah, they're kind of in crisis right now. They just lost to the Pat Spencer Warriors.
Right. They've been in a nosedive for a while, and I think that recontextualizes what that win was. So this is the first time that you've played a team with a coherent understanding of what they're going to do on the offensive and defensive end. And I think it's the first time we've kind of got that illuminating thing of, oh yeah, there is some work left over this last third of the season.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. And one thing I want to talk about the starting lineup, because we haven't really talked too much about that since Dean has become the starter for the foreseeable future. I do, just real quick, because I don't want to beat a dead horse or anything. I really do have some questions about that zone. I just haven't seen it work this year. I feel like last year there were I never have been. I'm not a bit crazy zone guy, and I think it's always important to say what your priors are on this kind of thing, because it's as we always say on this here podcast, a lot of what we do on accident as fans is confirm our priors. So I'm not like a crazy zone guy, but I saw, even when I didn't love it last year, I saw it kind of change the rhythm of other teams' offense, and give that little curveball like energy of oh, okay, now we've got to do this, and just make the team think a little bit. I'm not sure the Cavs zone has really done that this year. I feel like when the Cavs zone gets stops this year, it's mostly just teams missing open shots. I haven't seen the level of cohesion needed. We always say every coach will tell you, a zone can't be what you do when you don't want to guard. You have to work harder. You have to communicate more if you're going to be in zone. And I'm just not seeing that increased activity level that the best zone teams have that stop you from getting that wide open baseline cut dunk for Chet Holmgren. It was a no resistance zone, and you can't get away with that.
Yeah, even that possession where Keon got caught on the screen in the 3-2 zone, Wiggins gets a wide open 3 and he converts that 3. Mobley's forced to do a panic closeout on that possession. No way he's going to contest that shot, but even if that misses, that's an offensive rebound, right? He is completely out of position. I forget who kind of the low man was to provide help, but we're generally playing undersized lineups in those spots. So, I agree with you. I don't know if we have the personnel to play zone as frequently as we do, particularly, that 3-2 zone. You really can't be allowing dribble drive penetration with a 3-2 zone.
No, it's like almost, the one thing. It's like the thing is built to stop that.
It's more understandable with a 2-3, but 3-2, if you're throwing all of your guys kind of at the perimeter, that's where the bulk of where you're supposed to gum things up is. You can't be allowing drives, right? And I think some of this is whether it's rotations, whether it's how they're communicating on defense. This is the adjustment period that we said would be here after the trade, right? But I think you're correct in tying into kind of our prior concerns about the zone defense and wondering, do we have the personnel to execute this? Because I do have a lot more confidence in what the Cavs are capable of doing in man-to-man defense. And when you're making a shift on the fly, even if the pieces are similar to what we've had in the past, the familiarity isn't the same, right? And that familiarity is so important. And that familiarity also lends itself to the communication, right? Zone requires such a high level of communication to I'm helping here, you sag off. Everybody has to be on a string.
Has to be it's like a marionette.
And most importantly, it requires a ton of attentiveness and communication when it comes to the defensive glass, because you are not going to be in the same types of rebounding positions you are in man-to-man defense. You have to be able to know who has who and who am I putting a body on. And those guys are often getting more of a running start than they would in man-to-man, where you're bodying them up from wherever they are in the court. So I think those types of miscommunications is why you see not only that easy dribble drive penetration, but also some of the offensive rebounds that they gave up, which the bulk of that came in those single big lineups. Because if I look at for the game, Mobley and Allen, when they shared the court together, they got 80% of available defensive rebounds. That's elite. Like that is 6% better than the best rate in the NBA. It was actually at 83% without Dean Wade. So it wasn't just, hey, this larger lineup is collecting all these defensive rebounds. They actually rebounded defensively at a higher rate when Dean wasn't out there.
Well, in fairness, the Thunder missed 0 shots when Dean, Jarrett, and Evan were on the floor.
That is fair. There's just fewer available, so that might be part of it. But in those single big minutes, at least with Mobley and Allen, they gave up offensive rebounds on over 40% of opponent misses, which you're just not going to win, particularly in a game where you're already behind the 8 ball, giving up 20 extra points off of turnovers.
Yeah. And this is where if we're comfy, I would like to talk about the starting lineup decision. And again, I have to be really careful about the confirming priors thing, because I had concerns about Dean as a starting 3. And I feel like a lot of those concerns came to fruition in this game. Thing one, he gets ignored by OKC. They're able to bring a third defender into drop coverage, which is just like death. And it's just pick 6 city. Then you look at what it does to your lineups, and you just have to play so small. Jaylen Tyson, we've spent the entire year being like, why does Jaylen Tyson not look very good when he's at the 4? And what this has basically done is make him your full-time backup 4. And that's where all of his minutes are coming. And I'm not seeing a lot of comfort there. And then especially with Evan on a pitch count, where he's not playing a tremendous amount of minutes right now. He only played 25 total in this game. Your third most played lineup in this game was Dennis, Donovan, Keon, Jaylen, Dean.
Oof,
they played 4 minutes and 20 seconds together.
Shout out to Dean, though. At least when Dean was out there as the lone 5, 86% defensive rebound rate. So that at least they didn't get killed that way, but it is very small.
And I just don't ever want to not have one of Evan and Jared on the floor. I feel like the core thesis of the team, but it's harder to stagger your minutes in that way if you don't have Dean there to play 4 minutes at the 4 because he's playing minutes at the 3. So I just feel like it really kind of put them against the 8 ball. And I think Kenny saw that because he started with Sam in the third quarter. And while I would still be starting Jaylen, I think Sam actually was the right guy against this OKC team. One, because they didn't have any of their bullies to go just try to kill him on the defensive end. They didn't have J-Dub, who could be just crazy physical with him and stuff like that. But also just because the guards weren't getting the Thunder into rotation on their own. And if you don't have that, then you need some movement shooter energy. You need to create some off-ball chaos. So I thought Kenny made the right call in going to Sam, but then also, and it's a funky thing, and I want to be really cognizant of the bind coaches are in, because he just said, I want Dean to be the guy for at least the short term, foreseeable future at the 3. But then you look at this matchup with OKC, and it's he's guarding Kason Wallace. It's so you're not getting the value that you get from Dean if you're playing the Boston Celtics from last year. Because I remember when we were looking at the playoffs last year and we were talking about what to do with the 3, I was I could see them going with Dean for an entire series against Boston. So you could just have one, you could put him on Tatum and let Mobley, grab a guard or grab Jaylen Brown or whatever it is, and just be a little bigger, a little more switchable. Yeah, but I just, in this matchup, I didn't feel like he had a real place to be that wasn't the backup four, and he ends up, playing, 5 minutes to start the game at the three, and some backup 5 minutes, and I just feel like wasn't able to find a place to be as helpful as he could be.
Yeah, and I definitely think that what we're seeing from Jaylen Tyson is a bit of an adjustment period, right? Like moving to the bench, moving to primarily playing at power forward. It doesn't have him in sync, and that's tough because teams move fastest when everyone's in sync. Zoom Workplace keeps meetings, chats, documents, and more together, so your workflow is like a perfect play. Keep work moving and zoom ahead with Zoom Workplace.
I do think with Jaylen, something that I'm finding a little concerning is, because it's not just about when you're like stacking a starting lineup. It's not just about how that lineup performs. I know that's kind of me talking out both sides of my mouth because I also always talk about how important your best five is.
Yeah.
But I think another knock-on effect of that in the last couple games has been Jaylen, who has been our third or fourth best player this season, depending, in the aggregate based on availability and other things like that. Because obviously, like best peak Darius is better than what peak Jaylen's been. Peak Evan or Jarrett have been better, but he's just been around, and he's been playing 28, 30 minutes a game. The last two games since we've started rolling with this starting lineup, and without him in the starting lineup, he's played 17 minutes and 16 minutes, and against Brooklyn he played 23. And it feels like we're not getting a lot of impact out of this guy that we just spent talking a lot about how important he is for this team's short and long-term future. And I'm just a little worried about that since he just hasn't looked very comfortable at the four.
Yeah, I want to get to Jaylen in a second. First, I do want to comment just on the starting lineup and the decision to start Dean. I do think when Mobley gets off of the minute restriction, it does make it easier stagger, where Dean can still primarily be that backup four and play with each of the bigs, right? And there isn't going to be the need for kind of a single big lineup to be out there without some help. That being said, like I understand that it can work. I understand that for the regular season, the numbers are very good. I just think it's important to identify some of the issues that come with it, right? Because every lineup decision you make comes with trade-offs. And I don't think that this is an issue that the coaching staff can't solve. But one of the biggest things is, in order for it to work, Dean needs to be very assertive. He needs to take every shot that comes to him. He can't play this many minutes and only have one field goal attempt, right? We are getting back into that Isaac Okoro range where you have a very, very good perimeter defender where all the defensive metrics are phenomenal, but defenses aren't respecting him. In fact, there's less gravity than Okoro's had the last couple seasons. They sag further off of him. And he doesn't shoot as well as Okoro, right? Like when you're looking at the percentages. So I do think that you're kind of running into those same issues, with the primary difference. And one of the reasons why people like it is the height. So I wanted to
the height and the position. It's easier to be a low volume, accurate 3-point shooter at the power forward. The problem is he's starting at the small forward.
Right. But part of the reasoning, to in all fairness to Kenny Atkinson and the coaching staff, is the things that it brings to the table. Better defensive rebounding.
Yep.
Dean's absolutely bringing that to the table when he's playing at the small forward. In fact, when Jarrett, Mobley, and Wade are out there, they rebound defensively in the 99th percentile. It is as good as you could possibly have.
And and it'll never be Dean's rebounds in the box score. He's just a box out guy who helps his other teammates eat, and that is a very you deserve a lot of love for that, because that's a very selfless job he kind of undertakes.
Yeah, he's also a very versatile defender, right? Like, I think one of the advantages that you have is Mobley and Allen do have so much responsibility defensively, right? They're going to go out into space. Dean can rotate down. He can protect the rim in ways that none of the other small forward options are able to do, right?
Not even close.
He is also able to defend guards. He's able to defend wings. He has tremendous amount of defensive versatility. So this isn't a decision that is without merit. But I do think, there are the trade-offs, right? When it comes to spacing and stuff like that. And I do think it's worth comparing also just those strengths that he brings to the table. What is the drop off when you do go to Jaylen, right? So when Jaylen is out there with Mobley and Allen, they do rebound defensively in the 95th percentile. Pretty damn good, right? Like it is a drop off from 99th.
And I would not say that's because of Jaylen, who is not a great defensive rebounder.
No, but in general, the Mobley and Allen pairing rebounds well defensively, right? But having Jaylen out there, I think having a physical guy to at least check guys, I think that's important, right? It's even similar to what you were saying with Dean. He's going to put a body on a guy, even if he's not a great defensive rebounder. When you look at the perimeter isolation defense, Jaylen's in the 93rd percentile so far. When you look at the B-ball index tracking data, Dean's in the 87th. So in terms of isolation situations, he actually performs better. When it comes to balls,
but for what it's worth, just to continue to add as much context, I don't know if that matches my eye test.
Right, and we don't know how they quantify possessions either, right? Like this.
I feel like if I need someone to get a stop on a wing, I trust Dean more than Jaylen right now.
And some of that is track record. Some of that is track record too, right? And I wouldn't be surprised if Dean has harder matchup difficulty too, right? Like I don't have that data available to me right now, but that all factors in as well. When it comes to ball screen navigation, Jaylen's in the 90th, Dean is in the 98th. So when we're talking about, hey, the guards are getting hung up on screens, the fact that Dean is so good at navigating those screens is going to help the overall defense, right? So I do think, I don't feel like it's a major drop off, but I do think one of the unintended consequences is when Dean's starting and Jaylen's primarily playing as backup power forward, that is taking away from the initiation and the ball handling reps that Jaylen was really excelling at, right? When he was playing really well, he was almost playing more shooting guard, right? Or playing with two guards, but functioning in that way when it comes to ball handling because he's next to Sam Merrill. He's primarily a screen and roll guy here. And I think in this particular matchup against OKC, we reverted back to our worst habits on the offensive end, which is guard dominant offensive play. When the guards can't feed the bigs don't get fed. What did we say was really important to take some of the initiation burden off of Evan Mobley? Having that initiation come from the small forward spot in Jaylen Tyson. I think, as much as people talk about how many teams have won a championship with two small guards and they would focus on the height, I think the more important question is how many teams have won a championship with a point guard and shooting guard as its two best players, regardless of height, right? Like it's basically like the Warriors with Clay that 1 year where there was a bunch of injuries. And even then you could probably argue Draymond was more impactful and a better player than Clay at that point. It's the exact same question. A guard dominant offensive approach isn't going to work. As much as James solves problems and the availability, I think his decision making is better. We've talked about what he brings to the table. That's a plus from Darius. I do think what we discovered with Jaylen Tyson in terms of playmaking and wing initiation is something that this team has needed. And it's something that we need to continue to prioritize, even though we've brought in guys that can fill some of those roles that we had filled last year that weren't being filled this season.
Yeah, it feels like, it does kind of break my brain a little bit because it's like you would think, oh, we're getting Jaylen a slower footed guy to go up against that. And he's been so good operating in the pick and roll, and leaking, slipping out. But I think part of it is like, it's like the difference between like a little feature and a bonus that kind of breaks the back of the defense and being like, Jaylen, we need to run like 8 pick and rolls in a row because it's you or the center that's going to have to set the screen. And the center in some of these minutes is Dean Wade, who, is not going to be an advantage creator in the short roll. So it's like, it just feels like he is fine. He doesn't seem like he knows where his touches are, kind of in this new era. And while I never thought that Jaylen was going to be a guy that was going to maintain, that ridiculous pace that he kind of set earlier in the year, this January where he was averaging 15, 5, and 4, basically. Like, I feel like he's kind of searching right now, and I think the rotations could do him. Maybe if I'm the coach, I'm trying to find, lineups that you can succeed with him. And like
Yeah.
that is something that I thought about when you were talking about some of the new pieces that they're initiating and how, yeah, we're going to have some bumps and bruises while we're figuring out all this new stuff. One way that you can mitigate that is by allowing continuity elsewhere. Like, no, you are not going to have any continuity with lineups that include Dennis Schroeder, Keon Ellis, and James Harden. So, like, try to have 4 guys that have played a lot of minutes together in roles they're used to playing. It feels like we've added a 4th new player, and it's Jaylen Tyson, power forward right now.
Yeah, and some of that is right. Like when Jaylen was thriving, Dean was also out, right? Like I wonder what it would have looked like if Dean was playing that full stretch. What would Jaylen's of opportunities have looked like in that situation, right? So it's not just Kenny integrating the new pieces in Keon, Dennis, and James. It's also figuring out, okay, well, now Sam's back in a full capacity. Now Dean's back and capable of playing a lot of minutes, right? Like there's so many new parts to manage here, and you have the added complexity of Mobley on a minutes restriction, and that again ties into we have to have an understanding that this is going to take time. There is going to be trial and error. I think the decision to start Sam in the second half, I agree with you. I think that was the right call in that spot. I also think that stretch highlighted the advantages of having someone that is able to create in that small forward spot, right? Like I think one of the things that we've missed this season is Max Strus's ability to run a side pick and roll, to be a connector. And I think you saw Sam, he made some brilliant cuts, right? Like he got into open space, fed the bigs, made the right reads and passes in those situations. That is something that you are going to get from Sam Merrill. You're going to get it from Max Strus, and you've got it this season from Jaylen Tyson. That's not something that Dean Wade is going to bring to you offensively at the small forward position, right? So, and I think when you are talking about trying to attack and problem solve an Oklahoma City defense, you need to have more variety to your attack, and particularly in a spot where Evan Mobley is working back to get his sea legs. I thought he had a very poor game. I thought there was indecisiveness from him. He needs to be better. We all know he needs to be better.
2 rebounds is pretty painful.
It's brutal. Yeah, it's brutal, right? But like, we all know that Evan needs to be better, but I'm not highlighting him as much on this podcast because I think some of it is he hasn't played for a month and he's working his way back on a minutes restriction and all these kinds of things. So I'm affording him a little bit more grace, but when he's playing 32, 34 minutes a night again, you can't play like this. Your first 25 minutes can't go this poorly, right? Like we know he needs to be better, but I do think that having some initiation at the small forward position is really, really important. It gets back to what we talked about with Donovan and Darius. You can't have an offense that is solely orientated around the guards against the best defenses in the NBA.
And
that is true whether you are 6'5" or 6'1".
And also, if you're gonna get guarded like OKC was guarding, like short of Evan taking the leap that we thought he might take, like Evan hasn't shown that he can provide that front court playmaking consistently enough. So it's like you can't just, I feel like you can't just roll out the new core 4. I saw someone call him like the more 4 the other day. I thought that was funny.
It's pretty funny. I still want to go with core 4 because it breaks people's brains.
But like you can't just say like, oh well, we have those 4, so the offense needs to be good enough. Like everything kind of factors into the other. So like these bigs need to be set up. They just do. Evan can do it a little bit, but you don't want to build the whole plane out of that either. So like if a third defender is entering drop coverage, then I don't know if the Cavs have a great answer for that right now. And with that starting 5, and that tells me that to your point, I just feel like I would go with more playmaking. But again, it's these are hard. This is hard. A lot of experimenting kind of needs to be done. Um, I also really respect that the coaching staff needs to try to find some continuity wherever they can. So like it's really hard for them to, jerk guys around and be like, you're starting, you're not, now you are, now you're not.
Yeah.
So like it's just going to be a bit of an exploration. I'll be interested to see. I think that small forward will just remain the most fungible part of any playoff rotation in perpetuity. Like if they go down 1-2 in a series, I'll bet the small forward spot's the one that gets changed in game 4. I just no matter who's in there, even if Kenny started Jaylen Tyson tomorrow and said, I was listening to the Chase Down podcast, these guys made some good points, I'm going with Jaylen. I still would expect Jaylen to have the least firm grasp on a starting spot in a playoff series, just because I think that's what that position is going to be. It's going to be, and that's where the talent is the flattest, Like on any given night, Dean is better than Jaylen, or Jaylen's better than Sam, or Sam will be better than Max, or Max will be better than Dean, or it's just like, and it's going to be super matchup and context dependent. And this is just a really tough matchup for the starting 5.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like I do not think this is a game to be disappointed in. This is not a game to be discouraged by. Like I think it's going to suck in the moment, but this is something that I think they are able to learn from. I do think it ties into some of those same issues, right? Like there are going to be people that, for whatever reason, because of how they felt about the core group that was together prior to these trades, they feel like just getting Darius out solves all the Cavs issues, right? But the reality is the 2-guard lineup was not the Cavs issue, right? And just like James isn't the solution to every single one of their problems, he is someone that puts them in a better position, I think, to solve these problems. But these problems still exist. They're things that they have to work on. I think they're just put in a better position to go out and do so. And the one positive, I know I highlighted a couple of kind of miscommunications on the defensive end from him and areas where he needs to get better. One of my really big takeaways from this game was that Keon Ellis looked like he belonged. I thought he was terrific against Charlotte as well. But Keon Ellis looked like a Pacers wing to me. He looked like someone in the series last year that when things got rough, when things got sped up, when things got chaotic, kept their composure and made impact plays. Keon feels like one of those dudes. He feels, like a Neesmith out there. I love his activity. I think what he brings, the active hands, just kind of his sense. I just love when he's out there on the court. I felt really, really good about the Keon minutes while understanding, hey, there was a couple breakdowns here that you need to be better. Chet shouldn't be able to get you onto his hip in an isolation situation, particularly with his active hands. You should be able to take the ball away or at the very least stay ahead of him. But all things considered, Keon is passing the smell test for me, and I think he deserves a shout out.
Yeah, 5 deflections in this game. Cavs had 19, so the fact that he had 5 of about 25% of their deflections, contested 6 shots. Just I thought the activity level was great, and he's showing enough offensively. I think, I think he's going to be a little bit the prisoner of context on a game-to-game basis, in terms of kind of what his usage is, because I do think it's going to be mostly did he get a lot of open 3-point attempts? Because there's just not a crazy amount short of the pick sixes for him, where he's going to get a lot of 2-point field goal attempts up. But yeah, I mean, he's been awesome. And Dennis also, I think, deserves a little bit of credit for just getting into the Thunder teeth and not turning the ball over every time he did so.
Yeah.
I think he had 1 or 2 pick sixes of his own, but 7 assists to 2 turnovers and 11 points, like all pretty desperately needed to keep them in contact in this game.
Yeah. I saved this for the end of the podcast because I think everything we discussed today was really important. I think the Cavs had, even with the mistakes they made, they had more than enough to come back and win this game. They obviously tied. You know, some of the shot making and decisions down the stretch could have been a whole lot better. When you put yourself in a position where you need to get a stop on every single possession in order to win,
you're not going to win.
you're not going to win, right? Like sometimes, you know, there were those breakdowns that I highlighted in the fourth quarter. There was also times where it's just very good shot making, right? Like OKC was in a rhythm. They hit some good shots. Hartenstein had some beautiful floaters that were not easy shots. Like you have to kind of tip your cap, but you can't put yourself in that type of a situation. There is an important context thing here, though. And I'm going to read a tweet from Matt Moore. Teams are now 21-51 when they play 3 games in 4 nights with a set start time before 6. And he asks why we put 2 national games in with contending teams in this spot. The Cavs, when you look at the first game of that stretch, which was Thursday at 6 p.m. to the noon tip-off time against OKC, there is 66 hours between there. So I know it's 3 and 4, but really you're playing 3 and 3. When you look at the absence of time here, like those noon start times can be sloppy to begin with, right? Like I think we see a lot of games start with high turnovers or missed shots early when you start these matinee games. Having that be the 3rd and 4 or 3 and 3 in reality, I think that is part of the equation.
Yeah, I was curious if we were going to talk about it because it's like it feels excusey, but like the data shows you that these are lost spots, and these are get run off the floor type of games. But I still don't think they should have lost because OKC is just so beat up. But it does matter.
It is part of the equation, but the reason why I save it for the end is because everything we discussed is issues we've seen before.
Yeah,
this season, last season, the season prior, and the season before that, right? Like the Cavs have gone better in a lot of spots. They've worked on all of this. It doesn't happen as frequently, but these are still issues that are yet to be resolved. And I think it's even more important to highlight that after these trades where people feel like, hey, this is a brand new team and all that. At the end of the day, like I said, James is filling in the Darius role, Keon's filling in that Okoro role, and Dennis is filling in the Ty Jerome role. That team was not flawless. That team had work to do. That team had problems to solve and growth still to do. Those areas for growth still exist now, regardless of these new additions. So I think if you are looking for reasons to care over the last couple months of the season, it is stuff like this. That is why we highlight it, because if you ignore the areas for growth, you're going to miss the growth along the way. And this is why the regular season matters. This is why I don't listen to the people that just spout off, hey, none of these games matter. There's nothing you can learn from it. People only say that excuse because they don't want to have to sit there and actually talk about what's occurring in the games. These games matter, and these are the types of things you need to be looking out for.
Wrap the pod, brother. You preach. You nailed it.
I had a lot of energy, man. This was a bad sports day for me. I'm a little heartbroken with that Team Canada.
I'm sorry, man. I mean, go USA and everything, but I'm sorry. This is definitely one that you cared more about than I did.
I got up too damn early to watch that game. It was a lot of fun. I will say there was a beautiful, beautiful omen in it, which is Connor Hellebuck, Winnipeg's goalie, who happened to be goalie for Team USA. He has won the best goalie in the league award 3 times. He won the MVP last year. He's in his mid-30s, but the entire story on him is he craps the bed in big games. He plays absolutely terrible in these spots. Hellebuck absolutely was the best player on the ice. He basically turned in the equivalent of if James Harden had LeBron's Game 7 in 2016. That's what he did to win. I think that's a good omen for James Harden in the playoffs this year. People in their mid-30s can still do great things, even if the track record is a little bit sketchy. hurts my soul, but I found a way to spin it into a Cavs positive. So I'm going to look on the bright side. Big thanks to everyone tuning in live on YouTube. We appreciate you guys. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. Click that notification bell so you know when you're going live. If you're listening via podcast and you want to support us, leave us a rating, leave a review, subscribe, unsubscribe, resubscribe, and help cook those books. If you want to be part of Chasedown's exclusive Discord chat, send a screenshot of their review to chasedownpod@gmail.com. However you choose to support us, we really do appreciate it. Be sure you guys are staying safe out there. Until next time, go Cavs.